Sorry we're a little late today. We had the other meeting go along. This is now the Board of Education meeting for Wednesday, February 1st, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. here at Frederick School. I need a call to order and a roll call, please.
Weedman,
Here.
Mack,
Here.
Braden,
Here.
Albert,
Here.
Miller,
Here.
and Nash.
Here.
Okay, that gives us a quorum. If we could all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
So moved.
I'll second.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Albert,
Aye.
Weedman,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
LaCroix, oh, sorry, he's not here. Nash,
Aye.
Okay, now we're up to public comments. Do we have anybody signed up? Nope. Okay. Then we're up to the Equity Action Plan presentation.
All right, well, good evening. We are here together to share with you the Equity Action Plan that is a result of our work in DELT, and we're going to talk a little bit about it. All of these people behind me and some others that are sitting here as well are part of our district equity leadership team, and so we're going to spend some time talking about what we have developed in terms of our Equity Action Plan today. So as we always do, we are going to be starting with our mission and thinking about that this Equity Action Plan very much so relates to creating equity, right? And looking at how are we also cultivating community and empowering our learners, all from that equity lens. So we are very excited today to talk about that. As we look at our objectives for the presentation today, we're going to be reviewing some of the district's historical efforts to mitigate inequities and advance equity. And then we're going to also introduce to you our Equity Action Plan, or EAP, as we will call it today. More acronyms for you. And then we're going to share our next steps. So as we do that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Diaz to share historical.
Thank you very much. I have the honor to give the historical timeline of our work and how we arrived at the creation of the Equity Action Plan. So we'll begin back in 2016, where the District Diversity Committee strengthened and began formatting and forming our future equity work. From then to 2016 to 2018, the committee created the diversity policy, which I think most of you know and you see in the buildings when we go in. We also created a welcome video that featured many of the board members and many District 46 staff. And we took that and our preamble and our policy, and we went to we held an equity event at each of the district schools during a late start. And then we also focused our professional development on just what is equity and inclusion and what does that look like. See? Okay. All right. So then as we moved into the 2018 and 2019 school year, the committee had two main focuses or foci and initiatives. The first one for professional development was an intercultural development inventory that occurred among the administrators. And then for our students, we began shifting to focus on a transgender policy that really encompassed all of our students and our students' needs. In order to support and inform our practices, we learned from the best. We took a lot of Lurie Children's Hospital came in and they gave us one-to-one workshops, and then we continue to kind of strengthen and grow our database, if you will, and our foundation. And then we co-hosted an event with the Grays Lake Library called My Name is Jazz. Great. The 20 and 21 school years were probably the most integral, and they have been basically our backbone and have led us to where we are today. We renewed and recreated our strategic plan, and this is the map and our guiding factors. Before we make any decision, we refer to our strategic plan goals, our mission statement, our values, and then we make the best decision that we can. And as I know most of you know, our mission is included in all of our presentations. And today, as we continue to share this presentation, we hope that you hear that we really do have a focus on equity. We want to connect globally, we want to embrace cultures, and we want to maximize engagement. So continued, as I said, it was a very important year. We continued into the 2021 school year. We made some big changes that you can see and we put them into practice. And we now celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day instead of Columbus Day. The district shifted from Read Across America to celebrating a nation of diverse readers, and that happens in the first week in March. We also ensured that all district building libraries have authentic literature that celebrates diversity. And then the district equity's work, we ended up changing the name of the district diversity committee to Equity and Inclusion, which really was, came out of our learning and the best needs for our district and for our students. Okay, we're continuing. As we move into 21 and 22, our work in equity led us to create the DELT team, which is the district equity leadership team. Most of us are here. And then we conducted the equity audit, right? And as we also hired a new homeschool liaison who is an interpreter translator, and we solidified our practices and protocol for translations. Thanks. So all of these outcomes have led us to where we are here tonight in front of you, the presentation of the Equity Action Plan. We continued with our professional development. We have a stronger and very extremely supportive Equity and Inclusion Committee that continuously meets Monday nights once a month, and we've narrowed our focus on understanding the cultural responsiveness. I'm sorry.
So I want to talk a little bit more about just what the Equity Action Plan is. And as we think about this, it is an accountability framework for us in order to really look at what is the work that we need to do. This Equity Action Plan is meant to take 18 months of implementation. However, what we know about it is that we're thinking about the objectives that you're going to see in a few minutes. Those are long-term, and there might be multiple tasks that are within each of those objectives that are short-term. And so the objectives might take longer than we consider when we are starting to implement, and so we'll have to take that into consideration. And I want you to think about objectives as a lofty goal, right? And then what we need to do is complete some tasks along the way. So for example, when you are training for a marathon or running a marathon, your end goal, your lofty goal is that 26.2 miles. When you are preparing for that along the way for several months, you are having some short runs, some long runs, but you're completing some tasks along the way so that you're prepared to run that marathon. So looking at how are we going to meet all of those objectives. As you've heard me talk about at previous board meetings, there are 5 strands as part of this work. And so you're going to learn about each of those strands and what the objectives are within each of those strands from all of these wonderful people behind me. In addition to that, like I said, this is an accountability framework. There are leaders for each of the strands, and those strand leaders are going to be coming together monthly to utilize a progress monitoring tool to see where are we along the way as within implementation, and then continue to meet with our strands as we're doing the work. So you can see, as Stephanie shared, we have many of our members behind us. Not everyone was able to make it, but these are the names of everyone who is our members of our DELT. And we have representation from all of the different buildings, from all different levels, and different disciplines within each of the buildings. And so we felt it was a pretty good representation of the district in order to provide some input as part of this work. So we have, as I shared, we have those 5 strands, and those 5 strands are really looking at systemic equity. And so what you'll hear for each of these strands, again, is you'll hear those objectives, and we'll talk a little bit about what does that monitoring look like. So the first is systems. The second we'll talk about is teaching and learning. The third then is student voice, climate and culture, professional learning, and then family and community agency. And so it's time to learn about strand 1. Just gonna click that.
Thank you. That's the right place for you. Good evening. The first strand is systems, and that is to ensure systematic and continuous development towards advancing equity within all policies, process, procedures, initiatives, decision-making, and fiscal responsibilities. The members with the strand are myself, Lilia Erb, multilingual interventionist, Dr. Glickman, our superintendent, Mr. Vince Murray, the elementary principal of peer review, and Dr. Wolk, director of HR. The first objective is to establish and communicate CCSD 46 beliefs around the topic of equity through common, consistent messaging shared with all stakeholders. And that is being measured with collecting data regarding methods and frequency of messaging, and that aligns with the Board of Education and CCSD vision and mission statements previously mentioned by Dr. Diaz. And the second objective is to develop strategies to recruit and retrain highly qualified, diverse staff. That is being measured by monitoring recruitment and retention efforts, and that aligns with the Board of Education Policy 510 and 512.
So the second strand is the teaching and learning strand, and it focuses on ensuring equity within all of our curricular resources, assessments, programs, and instructional strategies. The members of the strand are James Goshi, assistant principal at Frederick School, Liz Larkin, a resource teacher at Woodview School, Katie O'Brien, our teacher on special assignment, Kathy Santelli, the principal of Woodview School, and myself.
So the first objective in teaching and learning is 2.1, which is to develop understanding around culturally responsive pedagogy and practices. To help us achieve this objective, we are going to plan on providing consistent definitions of culturally responsive practices to our staff. We are also going to plan on unpacking the Illinois culturally responsive teaching and leading standards, and then work to provide professional learning to staff around those standards. Additionally, we are going to be analyzing disparities in subgroup data on state and local assessments to identify implications for our future work. How this objective will ultimately be measured is to have that district definition of these culturally responsive teaching practices, and then also reviewing our state and local assessment data, looking at the performance of our various student groups. This aligns both to the Illinois culturally responsive teaching and leading standards, as well as the D46 mission, specifically on creating equity, and the curriculum goal in our strategic plan.
Our second objective is to review curriculum, resources, and district assessments for components of equity. And in order to achieve this objective, we plan on working to identify characteristics of a culturally responsive curriculum, create a rubric, provide professional learning for staff around the created rubric, and then eventually have each of our job-alike teams evaluate grade level and content area instructional cycle resources and assessments using the created rubric. And this aligns with the creating equity portion of our mission statement, as well as our strategic plan, curriculum goal 1, and board policy 610.
Okay, so the third strand is student voice, climate, and culture. My name's Linda Mizwicki. I'm the student services coordinator, and I am a strand leader for this. This strand focuses on students' voice and feedback, and on the culture and the climate. Members of our strand were Amy Corey, social science teacher at GMS, Ashley Hennenfeld, social worker at Frederick, Matt Malamed, principal at Park, myself, Mary Murphy, the Dean of Students at GMS, and Yvonne Schmidt, Reading Specialist and ELA teacher at GMS.
Our first objective is to implement a student advisory committee in each 538 building across the district. It aligns with our district mission and vision statements, and the whole purpose of this particular objective is to give students the opportunity to have their voice heard in a number of different ways. At GMS, we have a model that we're currently continuing to cultivate and grow, and we're hoping to consistently put that model in all the other 538 buildings. At GMS, we have a large group of students, and there's numerous branches that they can be a part of for student advisory. Some kids choose to be on the PBIS student advisory, and they help with the culture and the climate in terms of creating themes for our different assemblies and helping with the school store. Other kids want a different venue, and so they'll come in and they have the opportunity to voice their opinions and concerns about things that they come into contact with every day. And it gives them an arena to discuss those things and then have a hand in creating the solutions for those. So it really gives them that leadership opportunity. And we're hoping to put that in every 538 building throughout the district. Our next objective is to gather data and look through that data in order to find any discrepancies in terms of behavioral referrals. So it'll be collected and organized and then given to the building principals. They can review it and analyze it, and then if they identify any of those things, they will have the opportunity to create solutions to deal with any concerns that arise or inequities that they see within behavioral data that's collected in every building through District 46. And then we have the next strand, which is professional.
Hi, so I'm going to talk about the fourth strand, professional learning. The professional learning strand is going to work to build capacity of our systems. So we're working to create knowledge around instructional practices and educational decision-making through an equity lens. The members of our strand are Jennifer Fine, she's a social worker at the Early Childhood Center. Heather Lorenzo, Director of Student Services at the district office. Laura Morgan, the principal at Meadowview. Myself, my name is Leanne Salas, and I'm an instructional coach at Meadowview. And Amy Gluck, Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning. Our first objective is to develop a shared understanding on topics of equity. So we understand that the Equity and Inclusion Committee in the district have developed these definitions, and they have been shared with the strands. But what we want to gain is a perspective of where our staff is and their understanding of these equity practices. So we will be administering pre and post assessments with the staff of District 46. And this is in alignment with our district equity and diversity preamble beliefs and guiding principles. Our next objective would be to develop a continuum of professional learning on topics of equity. So we'll move beyond the understanding piece of it and start to identify the needs so that we can develop a continuum of professional learning. So we're going to be looking at gathering information through needs assessments in the schools. So this could look like a building walkthrough, focus group, and surveys. And then once we gather this information, we'll be able to analyze it and create a differentiated professional learning plan based on those identified staff needs. And this most closely aligns with our district value, modeling culturally responsive and socially responsible practices for all students. And finally, our last objective would be to implement this professional learning. So after we have developed our continuum of professional learning, we'll start bringing this to our staff. And in order to support them through this professional learning, we'll have our instructional coaches that will be available to support and focus on continuous improvement. And this most closely aligns to the district's strategic goal, which one was to implement this EAP during the 23-24 school year. So, and also aligns to our district equity and diversity preamble.
Good evening. So we come to our final strand, which we're actually so pleased to end with you today, because there's been a lot here today. And we've worked really hard. There's been a lot of deep conversation, and really, at the end of the day, it all comes together talking about family and community as agency. We want to make sure that we partner with our families so that we're creating that trust, that strength of community, that strength of culture, and having everybody feel seen. So the members of that strand were Barb Zaris, who is the principal at Avon School, Marcus Smith, principal at GMS, Mary Rosenblum Avalos, the teacher at Avon, myself, I'm a band director at Park Campus, and then Dr. Stephanie Diaz, who you've already heard today. So the first of two objectives, the first one is to foster a culture of equity in all district buildings. One very effective way to do that in gathering data, you've heard people talk about surveys already throughout our presentation, but one of those is it's 5 Essentials season. So we've been able to have 5 Essentials come out, and they're giving us an idea of culture within our buildings, but we are interested in looking at more surveys, having our principals send that out throughout our community so that we're really having more of a lens on the equity across our district as well. And this will align with some of those district strategic goals. We'll be able to review building culture, and then of course the district equity and diversity preamble. And our second objective is establishing consistent communication expectations for all district buildings. One really great way that we want to point out to you guys already is how important we know it is to make sure that all languages are being represented in some way, or that we are recognizing the language need in our district. So we do want to remind you guys that as registration, families are asked what their language needs would be, so that when we're needing to translate, and then that information is gathered and compiled and sent off to the building so that we know what those needs are. But of course, we have more to go beyond that. So we're also looking at being able to have like more consistent format in communication. There's a lot of really good stuff happening in each building, but what does that look like as a lens overall? Also looking at the district website, which you guys have all seen it. It's fantastic. Leslie McLeod, thank you. So yeah, like we should absolutely. And now we just have this beautiful thing that's out there that we can work with our webmaster too, and making sure that information that's coming from different buildings does have that unified look and that unified communication. And this will continue to align with district strategic goals, and it will work in conjunction with the first strand that you heard presented today. To wrap things up, I'm so sorry. What we want to end with you guys, because you heard that there are 5 strands, and we're wrapping it all up. And there was a quote that came up in at least our particular group, knowing that we were going to need to just bring it home. And we want to just leave you with this quote from Pat Waiters. When we listen and celebrate what is both common and different, we become a wiser, more inclusive, and better organization.
So as we conclude today, I cannot end this without, one, thanking this entire committee, and those even who are not here tonight. The amount of time and just brain power that went into creating this plan was amazing. People were really just engaged in the conversations and thinking outside of the box to help us to create this amazing plan that we are presenting to you today. So we are excited to start our implementation and open it up for questions.
I don't have any specific question other than to say thank you for all your work. I mean, you guys put a lot of time and effort into this, and it's appreciated by the board, especially we've been working for a long time on equity and inclusion in our district. Since almost pretty much right as soon as I got on, so it's been a while. But just thank you for your work, and I can't wait to see the results start piling in.
Good evening, and thank you, Delt. You all are amazing, and I'd like to give you just a public round of applause because it is truly a labor of love, and you have to truly be committed to and passionate about driving this work forward for it to be sticky and meaningful and have the impact that's necessary to create our one district motto. So I'm so grateful to each and every one of you that supported the plan. My question is around the data capture and measurement. I think I heard in a few of the strands there are plans to conduct surveys to get a pulse on effectiveness. And I'm curious if there's other ways, maybe through focus groups or such, where we can get a sense for effectiveness. Just thinking about, I know in my own personal life, right, we all are suffering from survey fatigue anymore. And so how do we keep a good pulse and make sure that what we're getting is meaningful and not just an output of survey fatigue and rote behavior? Thank you.
Yeah, I do know for some of the strands they were talking about, I know specifically for professional learning, we had talked about focus groups. We had also talked about doing some walkthroughs, just what do we see, creating some checklists of let's look, how are we equitable? What does it look like within our classrooms? And I know some of the other strands have been talking about other ways as well besides surveys. I don't know if anyone else wants to come chat about that.
We will be conducting, we're one, yes. Systems, we're going to be conducting some focus groups with some of our paraprofessionals of color to try and find how we can help support them as they move forward into becoming certified teachers, and what we can help across the district.
That's awesome. Thank you.
So thank you so much for all the many, many months of work that you've put into this committee and all probably the years that came before that where you've been thinking about it and looking for a place to contribute. So thank you. This is kind of a question, kind of a comment, maybe a request. Something that I'm excited about is taking a look at our spaces. I'm hoping you'll look at the outside spaces too. They're rich in gardens and food is such a part of culture, so I'm hoping that'll be part of what you come back with. And want to really thank you for including family and community. It's so consistent with our mission and our vision, and it's a passion of mine too. So thank you for making sure that that was part of your plan. I appreciate that.
I don't have a particular question, but I just want to express an enormous amount of thanks for the work that was done, even before, 2016, when the diversity committee came into being. This was a place that my family felt safe for the needs in my family. So, District 46 has always been at the cutting edge of what is really, truly advocacy for everybody. And I think this is just an enormously emotional and incredibly beautiful plan to move forward with. And so the work that you've all put into it is above and beyond anything that I think some of the original members of the committee could have imagined at that point. So I think thanks are going to be in order from now until forever, probably. And so thank you for working on that. And also I'm excited about it because this informs some of my own teaching. And I think, as we all hear different voices, what can I bring back to where I am at? So thank you for all the hard work and the late nights.
I'll echo that without piling on. I was just, I was reviewing our policy in preparation for kind of renewal and just looking at where we started. And that was a big deal. Just that policy was a big deal in 2016. And it was right after my entree to service on the board was through equity when I fired off a memo to the school board about it. And they were like, guess what? Come on over and join us. And the rest is history. So it's near and dear to my heart. But to see that process go from those few paragraphs that were so much work and effort at that time to get there, and I know some of you were on that journey, and then to see this where we are today is everything that I had hoped for that we would do when I first fired off that memo. I do have a question for you, and it is, what can the board do for you? What do you need from us to make this plan feel sticky and real and really powerful?
I would say just support, right? Continue to bring questions our way, continue to engage in the conversations, and it's going to help us to move forward.
Awesome.
I do have something to add. Well, of course I do. No, I actually did. it's kind of interesting standing here in this room because before Frederick was built, I could see my childhood backyard, like right out that window. My family's been here since the 80s, and it's been a long journey watching the community grow, and I have the honor of now teaching in it and raising my family here. And as we're saying, hey, come back to us, I just want to say, spread the word. Like, how do we strengthen that community, and how, hey, here's what we're doing. Here's what they're trying to do, and in a way helping us gather that data too. I think, Tamika, that your question about surveys was really powerful because, yeah, we're all a little surveyed out, but we could all use a little bit more connection. So being able to even just come up with those ideas too, and keeping people connected, because maybe some people might be just as crazy as me, where they stick around.
I don't have much to add, just thank you for the long years of work, and I look forward to hearing more as you continue, and we all continue this work together. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, there is cake.
Is there cake? Oh, I'm not missing cake tonight.
What's that?
I'm not missing cake.
No.
Tonight. What is that for?
I see that cake.
What's the cake for?
Where's the cake? I can see it now.
Okay, next we are up to board reports. The only thing I had that I was going to add for board reports is, while it's still good for the community, we did not receive, how do I rephrase that? We did not receive the tax abatement grant that we applied for the 4th or 5th time in a row, even though we had discussions with Melinda Bush regarding some changes in the way the law was written. I firmly believe that it is written that it definitely helps high schools and unit districts, and those that are K through 8 definitely suffer in the ability to get some of that property tax abatement grant money. On the good side, District 127, the high school, did get the award, so there should be some tax relief coming from that. But I would suggest that we reach out to our new representatives in the area, Laura Diaz, and maybe if we can, maybe Christy, if you want to join me, maybe we can try and sit down and have a conversation with her again. Well, not her again, but with the state level people again about how the law is written and how it favors two groups versus the one. I mean, we're a tier 1 district, and 127 is not, and they got money before us. So there's an inequity part of that phrase, that law that I would like to still be able to address at the state level. So if maybe we can try and reach out to her.
Yep, I have it.
So that is all I had.
Sorry, I have a few more legislative updates actually to continue on Mr. Weidman's update. So Dr. Glickman and I attended the EdRed legislative dinner last week, and I just wanted to give you an overview of what EdRed will be focused on this session. You have an email on it as well, but the things that I thought were most pertinent to us, they do have 2 committees that I think might be of interest to us. One is a school safety committee. So as our safety and security committee is being stood up, that might be an interesting place to, if you have advocacy needs related to that committee regarding legislation, that might be an interesting place to get those advocacy needs voiced so that EdRed can advocate for them. And then there also is a special education committee specifically related to funding as well. So if you've got a point of view about how we fund special education in the state, that would be a great place. So district leaders, you are like free to engage EdRed as needed on those topics. So it's there for you. Then there's 2 initiatives that I thought would be relevant to the district overall. One is PD and mandated training and consolidating and improving the process. So anything that makes teachers' lives easier, I'm here for. So it's about being portable, as well as a streamlined 5-year cycle. So hopefully that passes and there's some relief for at least that little part of your job. And then there's a clear and present danger legislation that is really about communications between the state police, local law enforcement, reporting school districts, and really just tightening up those relationships, especially when it comes to threats made to the school community. And we've lived that this year already. And so I think, it'll be really interesting to see what they come up with and what they can do legislatively. Rep. Dydick, who's down in Vernon Hills, is the sponsor for that. So EdRed will be advocating for something related to that this session. And then they do have 2 hot topics that they are asking for advocacy on. One is on funding for new student arrivals. So there is a proposal for a new student arrival grant and appropriations to that fund for districts who are receiving new families arriving from other countries. Again, let's fund that so districts have the money that they need to really welcome those new members of the community. And then also, EdRed is also looking at advocating for sunsetting a voucher program called Invest in Kids. It really is, in a lot of ways, basically takes money and funnels it to private schools. And so EdRed's committed to public schools should get public funding. We shouldn't be sending state funding to private schools. And so they are engaging on the need for, hey, let's put money in EBF. just a thought. Versus sort of channeling it in this way to, to create diversion of those funds compared to where they should be. So those are just the topics that are that EdRed will be pressing for this session. I'm going to go to the meeting next Friday, so if there's any updates on those, I'll report back to everybody. And Jim, I think we should meet with Senator Edley Allen as well as Rep. Dias, and I think that's a great one to advocate for. So.
I would like to wish good luck to the Frederick and GMS Science Olympiad teams this weekend. They have an invitational on Saturday. And I want to publicly thank Alec Renner and Pam Zusky, the Science Olympiad coordinators and coaches for those 2 schools. To my understanding, there is not a team at Park. Otherwise, I would mention them. I also want to thank the students and the coaches for volunteering their time weekly. Frederick the Science Olympiad team has 14 students and 4 parent coaches, and the GMS Science Olympiad team has 20 students and then 16 adults and 2 high school volunteer coaches, and one of the adult coaches is a grandparent, and another is a neighbor, just a community member, neighbor of one of the students. And I'm really grateful for those community volunteers who invest their time in education. And the second thing I want to add that fits with, community involvement with the equity plan and learning beyond our walls, the local Dunn Museum has a temporary exhibit called Through Darkness to Light, Photographs Along the Underground Railroad, and it's there until the end of, March 19th. There's public free admission to this museum on the first and Thursday night of each month. And so we can take advantage of that this February and March. And just wanted to share that. And that shares an important piece of our country's history with the freedom seekers across our country.
Okay. Christy?
So I just wanted to thank everyone who was involved in updating our website. It seems like it all went very smoothly, and I had the pleasure of being on it today looking for some things, so thank you very much to everyone who was involved with that. And then just wanted to let you know that the Community Engagement Committee is gearing up for the Community Cafe on February 21st. I'll give you a little more information about that later, but they are in the midst of dialogue training right now. We're about halfway through Crucial Conversations. Everyone on the CEC is a volunteer, and they've committed to 5 weeknights for 2.5 hours each time. So they are earning that certification as we speak.
Tamika?
Today I had the unfortunate experience of tuning into the funeral services of Tyree Nichols, who was brutally beaten to death and subsequently died from his injuries in Memphis, Tennessee. And so I watched his memorial service in part to hope to hear some words of encouragement and healing that I could pass along to my kids, one of whom is still in the district. And the reason I bring it up is because I think that, you know, we are really committed to equity and inclusion here through our committee, through this evening hearing about the very comprehensive EAP or Equity Action Plan. And so I know am I too early, Dr. Lorenzo? Just a little. Mrs. Lorenzo. Mrs. Lorenzo has done a ton of work around just trauma-informed learning and practices and social emotional work. And I just want to continue to encourage our board, our leadership team, and give any support that's needed to Mrs. Lorenzo to make sure that we are putting resources out there within our schools so students that may be outwardly expressing grief or inwardly, that we are very attuned to that. I know part of the EAP is around just the discipline, the demographic discipline, and sometimes some of the things kind of under the surface, right, are trauma-led outward behaviors. And so as my 7th grader and now 9th grader asking questions about, you know, things that they're seeing on TikTok or social media or in the news, or that's even being readily talked about in the school buildings, I want to ensure that they have an outlet, a public outlet where they know, one, we know this is out here, and two, if you need us, we're here, and come talk to us. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Next, we are up to the superintendent report.
Okay, so I will start that this evening. You may notice I'm not Dr. Glickman, but I just want to start by just stating she's sorry, Dr. Glickman is sorry that she could not be here tonight. She had a family matter that needed attention. She looks forward to seeing everyone on February 15th when she is back. And I am going to turn over the beginning of our superintendent report to Dr. Woke.
Thank you, Mrs. Glickman. I have...
Are you listening?
She's not here tonight. Okay, Dr. Gluck. I have several items to share tonight, but first and foremost, we need to take a minute to remember Mr. Dan Ferlin, a beloved program assistant for over 20 years in our district, who sadly passed away this weekend. Dan was an amazing person who created many friends and impacted thousands of students over his time in the district. Dan worked primarily at GMS, but for this year, he was helping to support students at Meadowview. He was a colleague, friend, and overall great person. He will be sadly missed. Services for Dan will be on Thursday evening from 5 to 7 p.m. at Salada Funeral Home in Gurnee, and we can share that information. Please keep Dan's family and all of our staff and students in your thoughts. Last Thursday, I had the privilege to speak on a panel at our 16th annual Illinois Association for School Personnel Administrators, IASPA. It was a panel discussion regarding recruiting. Other panels were from Lake Forest, NSSEO, a special education collaborative, and Joliet Elementary School District. It was a great discussion where we were able to share our own experiences and learn from each other as well as the audience. To go with that, for the past several years, I've been working directly with the Associate Director of the Teacher Education Center at Illinois State University to help to increase the number of teacher prep students that we are able to bring to our district, student teachers. 2 weeks ago, I was asked by Mr. Hickam to write a welcome letter regarding our relationship to be included in the acceptance materials for students who are admitted to the teacher preparation program at ISU. I'm proud to share that CCSD 46 will now be represented to all students who plan on becoming a teacher at ISU. We're getting our name out there.
Good job. Thanks. Mr. Wildman and Mr. Halperin, I think you are next.
Thank you. The Resource Conservation Committee met for the first time on Monday. Members of the committee include building and district administrators as well as teachers and program assistants. For our first meeting, we looked at our current board policy 4:70 and focused our discussions on the district's current initiatives for recycling, composting, and we discussed our current paper usage. The first goal of the committee will be to bring data back to the committee about where we're using our copiers, what we're using them for at a building and district level, and to identify that current usage. That will allow us to find out what we've spent over the last few years. This will give us a starting point as we move forward in making plans to reduce our paper usage. The next meeting will be on April 17th. The next update I have is regarding WALD. Our architects, WALD, have begun their work as part of the board-approved capacity and utilization study and the educational adequacy assessment. They have been data gathering, visiting buildings, and having meetings with all our building leadership. WALD has outlined their approach to this process. This is the direct quote from them. It is critical to first identify the needs and collectively reach consensus on those needs, as well as agree on what we will prioritize as a district. The data gathering and needs becomes the basis for criteria of any options development we will base this on. We had a meeting today with WALD, and they updated us on the process and some of those preliminary observations. We have tentatively scheduled a community engagement meeting for April 3rd from 7 to 8, and this will be held remotely by Zoom. This will be the first opportunity for the community to see high level of our progress and to have a question and answer session with our architects. Yes, April 3rd, 7 to 8 p.m., remote Zoom.
And the purpose of that meeting is what?
To give a progress update and to allow the community to see current progress of the engagement.
And that's a tentative date right now.
Tentative.
Yeah. No problem. Thanks. Couple other things. One is, I know it was mentioned during the EAP presentation, but cannot, forget about our new website without thanking Leslie Armstrong again. There has been incredibly positive feedback related to the website, so another hand for Leslie over there. Went off pretty much without a hitch. So, so it looks great, and we've been getting a lot of positive feedback. We are within our NWA winter window right now for map testing. We just finished where we began January 23rd for grades 1 through 8. And that, again, is reading and math. The kindergarten window opens on February 6th, so Monday. This will be the first time they are taking it, as they did not take it in the fall. And just a reminder of how we use that data. We're using that data to monitor our student growth. We're identifying areas of growth and celebrations within our system. And we can look at that at the classroom level, at the school level, at the district level. And so it really allows us to look at that student growth and to celebrate, as well as identify some areas that we need to improve. As you, we may not have talked about this during my previous presentation earlier in the year, but it is, MAP assessment is linked to IAR, and so it also, to proficiency in IAR, so it also allows us to proactively look at students and see where we might need to intervene or where we might want to enrich in order to think about individual student needs. So looks at patterns that we might be able to find through MAP assessment. So it's a nice opportunity for us. So as I shared, we should have those. We're closing up that window and starting up for kindergarten. And then the last piece that I have is just an update from our Equity and Inclusion Committee meeting that occurred last week on the 23rd of January. And so we spent some time updating the committee about our work within DELT and sharing some of the strand updates as we've been doing all along. We had a lot of discussion about committee members and opening that back up to invite more committee members at this time of people who would like to join the committee. And then had some conversation about the religious holiday thought exchange that went out, that I'll share some more information when we get to the calendar update a little bit later today for everyone here. And our next meeting is February 13th.
Thank you very much. Next, I need a motion to approve the consent agenda, including the addendum to the personnel report.
So moved.
I'll second.
Braden,
Aye.
Nash,
Aye.
Albert,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
and Weedman.
Aye. All right, on to action items. We only have one action item today, and I need a motion to approve the hiring. Would you like me to finish?
Is he objecting or what?
I was like standing up. I need a motion to approve the hiring of Amanda Pelser, did I say that right? As the Director of Innovation.
So moved.
I will second.
Can I go up there for a minute?
Sure.
Thanks.
If anything, we're entertaining.
That's how excited we are about Amanda. So thank you all very much. Amanda has gone through multiple rounds of interviews. It started with a video interview, which is very stressful. And then she went through 3 more rounds of interviews, meeting with stakeholders from across the district. Amanda continually rose to the top of every interview that she had, impressing us with many of her different skills. We actually have 2 of our panelists interviewers who was here. So I'd like to call up Kirsten Innes to share a little bit about Amanda.
I'm so excited to introduce you to Amanda Pelser. I've known her for many, many years through our professional learning networks, IDEA and ICE, worked with her closely on different committees, but that's just not why she got the job. So during her interview, she talked about her passion for learning and technology. She talked about her teaching and learning experience. She comes to us with classroom experience. She also comes to us with boxes and wires experience, which is really important to marry those 2 together to be able to continue to move us forward in everything that we do, because everything is connected. So I'm so excited that she's bringing that to us. She also has great project management plan, which I can't remember what it was called. That's it, yep. Which included a lot of communication and a lot of thorough planning, which we know that's what we need to continue moving forward. When I came to the district way back in 1999, we were on the bleeding edge of technology. We weren't on the cutting edge, we were on the bleeding edge. And I feel with Amanda's innovative ideas, her experience on the teaching and learning side, and the boxes and wire side, we're gonna be pushing that edge again. So I'm really excited. So thank you for allowing me to introduce Amanda.
Thank you, Mrs. Innes. And for those who don't know Mrs. Innes, she is the information specialist at Prairie View. Now I'd like to call up Mr. Brandon Gill, who is coordinator, what is it? He's going to introduce himself.
How's it going? I'm Brandon Gill. I'm the coordinator, something systems administrator, according to Dr. Wolk. I have known Amanda Pelser for not many, many years like Kirsten has. I met her during her interview and then again tonight. I will say the one thing, I can only really speak from the technical side. I don't know a lot of the teaching and learning stuff like you guys all do. But from the technical side, I liked the boxes and wires experience was big, especially because, as you guys know, Chris Vipon had a nice mix of those things, and I saw a lot of those traits in her during an interview. She talked about her current position and all the work she's done there, as well as describing how she was able to accomplish everything she was at her current job with the project she's done. And the project she described when she first started her current position sounded a lot like the projects we have to do now. Things that she's done over the last couple of years were things that we are just now starting, so that was reassuring as somebody who's new to this position to have somebody with a lot of experience that's going to come in and be able to know exactly, kind of look at what we need and take us to where we need to be at. So, and her personality seemed like a great fit with the technology team members that were in the interview. There was a few of us, and somebody else on the panel had mentioned that during a lot of her answers, there was a lot of us kind of nodding along and agreeing and seemed to really mesh well. So I think the personality is there too. So really happy to have you on board soon and looking forward to working with you.
Can I have a vote, please?
Weedman,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Nash,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
and Albert.
Aye.
And if we can take a short recess, we have some cake in the back that Mr. Mack, Dr. Mack is all excited for. All right. So we'll take a 10-minute break. Okay. We are back from our short recess. Moving on to unfinished business, and that is the community cafe discussion.
Brandon, would you mind putting up the slide, not the org chart one, and the funnel, please?
I mean, I don't see that we are going to necessarily have anything as formal as a committee soon. So I would say for current state, I'd take it off.
Okay.
May
Thank
change in
you.
the future, but.
Thank you. And then just want to make sure everyone's comfortable with some of the language that I'm going to use, which will be something like the green side is the side that Dr. Glickman oversees, that's staff, that's outdoor spaces and how they're used during the school day. The blue side, which is what we're talking about tonight, on the 21st, I would say that, is the community side. And that's what we're going to be talking about to differentiate that we are not to kind of put some boundaries around the conversation so that we know we're talking about after school use and not during school use of those. Am I good with? So if you have concerns about that, it would be good for me to know that sooner than later. The next, thank you, Brandon. The next slide is, I'm having someone else fix this. This is not the image I'm going to use, but it gives you a concept. Go ahead, Leslie, crawl under the table. All right, you know. So clearly it's in need of improvement graphically. But conceptually, this is an image that I want to use to show our community how many different places will be informing decisions about community outdoor learning spaces. And we will be using the information from the community cafe, but the decisions don't rest on participants' shoulders. They don't have to worry about the legal implications. They don't have to worry about budget implications. They just need to tell us what they value and how they're using the spaces currently. Once I clean up this image, is there any content that you want me to add as you think about how you're making decisions about specifically outdoor learning spaces? Should I include more circles?
I don't think sorry, new teeth. I don't think you need to add more circles, but I think this is probably a good representation of how all the decisions are made, and not just for the outdoor learning.
Okay.
So, I guess I would phrase it more along those lines.
Yep.
This is how these are where we get our inputs from, and it all comes down on how we get down to the point of making the decision, and not just focus on one aspect of any one decision.
Yep.
Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
yeah.
That's how, it's
a more
basically how we
general.
do all the decision making.
Okay. Does anyone have anything you want me to add, or?
I would just say that maybe the grouping of like how the if this isn't what you're trying to get at, let me know, and I'm trying to take it to that higher level, like Jim said, but like the idea that the board works through policy, and so just making that clear, like the
somewhere in that funnel needs to be policy.
yeah, well, the policy is there, and I'm thinking about like the board works through policy and basically making decisions about how to spend our budget. So like that those are the ways that those are the levers that we use to get work done. And then in terms of the actual, like, maybe this isn't the purpose of the drawing. I was just thinking about
Keep
bucketing, like the idea that like we're not necessarily, maybe it's, no, I don't think it's what you're trying to get at. I was thinking about more about like balcony and work, and like that the board, because the board's on the balcony, our work is done through policy and budget, and like
Right.
differentiating that way as well. But I don't know if that's actually the purpose of what you're trying to do. So
I'm just gonna listen and take it in right now, and maybe reach back out to you.
Yeah, that's fine.
So that we know.
Yeah.
So that I make sure that whatever graphic it'll be, it's gonna be simple.
yeah, I was just
So-
thinking is there a way to organize those inputs by stakeholder? I don't know. That's a right word.
Yeah. By something maybe that reflects even the org chart that we had before.
Yeah.
Okay. Inputs by balcony dance floor, is that correct? Okay, thank you. Anything else? Anyone want me to, what else?
I would like to add, if possible, if we all agree, science and social science, because we are considering and influenced by evidence-based learning practices. When COVID hit, we were looking at science and data to make those decisions. So we do use social science and science to help make our decisions too.
Science, social science, and data, or data? Okay. Anyone else? Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to new business. These are discussions of our board policies. We had our policy committee meeting earlier today.
All right, so we discussed, if I counted correctly, I think we discussed 27 policies tonight. Yeah. So of those 27 policies, 2 of those were tabled for discussion for next time. Our next policy meeting will be on February 15th, before the next board meeting. 4 of those were discussed to bring back for further discussion at that time, and that was for some changes in wording, some additions. So for example, in 4:70, the resource conservation was looking at adding some information about baseline data by 2024 and including food waste in that definition. And then looking at, for 6:15, adding in land into what the board is giving priority. Board of Education is giving priority in allocation of resources, including funds, time, personnel, and facilities, and land to fulfilling that purpose. Looking at, for 6:250, the addition of adding something about the people who are supporting outside spaces into that. And then for 6:260, getting some further legal consult related to that policy. And I think those were the 4 that we said we were going to bring back to talk about further. And then the remaining policies we didn't discuss yet, we will also discuss those.
Does anybody have any questions?
Can I just, can I clarify, or can I ask a question specifically about 260?
Yeah.
Would that legal guidance be around how to define community member?
Great. Yes.
Thank you.
Just clarification around 6260. Is the action to consult with our council? So are we talking about consulting with Kevin on that one?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. All right. Then we should see a list next board meeting of ones that we will approve. And then the next, we'll also, I believe, we're having another curriculum meeting next board meeting as well. And we'll go over the ones that we had for rewrites and questions on. All right. Next is a discussion on the draft of the proposed 23-24 school calendar, waiving legal holidays as required. Under Public Act 096-0640, Veterans Day on November 11th, President's Day, February 13th, and Casimir Pulaski Day, March 7th, in order to hold school. This is something we've done for the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, if not longer. Does anybody have any questions or concerns with that change?
Question. Is this an action we'll have to take on an annual basis, or can we have a statement or a position that confirms like our stance on these holidays, so they're not like annual attestations, if you will?
I'm pretty sure they have to be annual.
Thank you.
Because I think we've asked that before. I'm pretty sure it's the Public Act that tells us we have to do it annually.
Annually, okay. Thank you.
Do you want information about the rest of the draft of the calendar?
Sure.
Too?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So as you saw in your memo, there's a draft of the 23-24 calendar that was drafted in collaboration between administration and union leadership from both GFT and PSRP. As always, we did our best to align the calendar as much as possible with District 127 for the convenience of families. And if you remember, also this year, we considered response to questions that came up from the Equity and Inclusion Committee. And so what happened was then, based on the questions that came from Equity and Inclusion, there was a poll to stakeholders and their thoughts regarding closing schools on religious holidays. So in there, from those results, there were 573 individuals that responded to that survey. The question was, one of the questions was, how does our current school calendar affect your observation of religious holidays that are important to you, and what should be considered regarding observations of religious holidays when developing the school calendar? So there were 3 highest ranked answers that came from that. One was the school calendar matches our religious needs. It's more important that D46 and D127 calendars match. Families with multiple children should have opportunities to be together at the same time. The second highest ranked was some holidays are not observed by the district, and I've witnessed my coworkers having to take days off to observe their holidays. No one should ever have to use their personal or sick days for an observed holiday, no matter the religion. And then the third highest ranked answer was, at this time, the holidays that I celebrate are days school is closed. So although those were the highest ranked responsive answers, each of those were only ranked by about 28 or 29 people. So the other data, the quantitative data that was collected was responses. The respondents were asked to use checkboxes to respond to our family's cultural or religious background, would be greatly supported if the school would be closed on the following holidays, and I hope closing on these holidays would be considered. The respondents that had the most was, we had 59%, so 315 said Good Friday. And then the next highest was Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur with 9% and 8%. So, and then underneath that was Diwali with 6%. So, you know, that was taken into consideration as well. So, all of that, so based on all of these findings, it was agreed upon to The most commonly requested school closure was for Good Friday, which happens to be embedded into the spring break that both D127 and D46 are proposing for next year, for the 23-24 school year. Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur were the next most commonly requested. Rosh Hashanah happens to fall on a weekend during the 23-24 school year, and Yom Kippur is during the work week. So D127, like D127, it is recommended that the proposed calendar has D46 closed on that day as well. And then, as I shared, Diwali was the next commonly requested. It also falls on a weekend during the 23-24 school year, but it is unlikely that we would close for that day in the future. However, if it does fall on a school day, schools will be aware, and students would be excused absences for religious reasons, but we would also work to avoid scheduling any school special events on that day. And then other just main points related to the calendar. School year would begin Monday, August 21st. So the 21st and 22nd would be Institute days. Wednesday, the 23rd would be the first day for 1st through 8th graders. 24th would be the first day for kindergarten, and the 28th would be the first day for pre-K, which would leave us with May 31st is the last day of school if no emergency days are used, with June 6th being the last possible day of school.
And if I remember right, the start date for school was based on the survey as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
You mean in terms of the week?
In terms of
Or
what
to the
day,
day of the week?
in terms of which week we started.
Because it is a week later.
It's a week later than
Okay.
127.
Okay. And it's also a week later than what we typically, right?
Than what we did
start
this
like
year.
in the teens usually. Interesting.
So this year was the first year that we actually had an early start. Typically, it's just how the calendar falls. It's like 18, 19, 20, 21. 21st this year would be the first day for staff. If we were to move it up to the 14th, we could look at possibly getting out before Memorial Day. But that's why we surveyed the staff to find out kind of their feelings on that. Think about it logistically. You get an extra week in August where it's warmer. We've all lived through Northern Illinois maze. You never know what you're going to get. Based on this winter, it could still be snowing and ice on the lake. Shh.
Okay, anybody have any questions for that? Or are we good to move forward for next board meeting? Okay. Right, the next one is a contract award for a referendum consultant.
I'll take that one. Okay, so at the November 30th, 2022 board meeting, the Board of Education discussed engaging with a professional firm to assist with public engagement around a future referendum. To assist the Board of Education as the next step, the administration contacted 3 firms that specialize in this service. So heads up, there's some acronyms coming at you. Beyond Your Base, BYB, Jaskolka Terman, they call themselves JT, and E. O'Sullivan, that's the name. We obtained proposals from each of them, including scope of services and total costs of the engagement. We also obtained questions from board members, and these were sent to all 3 firms, and they responded very diligently and quickly. 2 board members, Jim and Jason, joined the administration, myself and Dr. Glickman, and we met and discussed next steps. Based on the proposals, professional reputations, slow down, references and costs. Beyond Your Base was identified, BYB, was identified as the leading candidate and asked to present to the group. We asked them to outline their approach to the engagement, and based on the presentation, the group felt that this was the best firm to provide public engagement services for the district as we move forward in our referendum planning. At this evening's board meeting, we are presenting for discussion this proposal. So it outlines all the scope of services in the board packet, including the engagement, schedule, and compensation. And the cost of the proposal is $85,000, which is a fixed cost.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions, comments? Christy?
Yeah, Chris, I don't, so just not expecting you to have answers tonight, but it would be good to know when we vote. We had sent you some questions, and I understand, I had questions about stakeholders, and I understand that they're going to use a citizen task force, a mail survey, and a hybrid poll. So I would like to know more about those. Specifically, my question earlier was how are we going to make sure each stakeholder group has access to this planning process? And since two of these are technology-based, I'm concerned about elders in our community who are not, or maybe I should back up. I'm concerned about people who are not tech savvy having access to this process. So that leads me to the Citizen Task Force. How are people identified for that? Are they invited? And is that kind of a reward for good behavior, or how are we identifying and pulling people into that task force so that we get a variety of opinions? So stakeholders, that's one. I can email you the questions if that's easier.
Yes.
Okay. And then I am curious, I went online and was looking, Mrs. Nash gave us some good ideas about procurement. So I'm curious, of the 13 bidders, how many of them have an explicit commitment to equity? Oh, you know that. Thank you. Okay.
No, three bids.
3 bids? Oh, okay.
We contacted 3.
Oh, sorry, typo,
Sorry.
3. And then in what ways are they moving sustainability for this company? How are they moving sustainability forward, if they are at all? So if you could, I can email you the questions. Thank you. But I'm curious about those things.
Okay. Tamika? All right.
Yes, same, I had the same question she did.
Okay.
About sustainability.
My only thought would be that there are some additional complementary services listed in BYB. And so I'd just be interested in maybe understanding, those will be out of scope. They're clearly, carving that out in terms of scope. So I'd be interested in maybe ballpark costs, or just, what your thoughts are on engaging those additional resources.
Jessica?
No questions
Okay.
at this time.
All right. We good to move this forward for next board meeting? Okay. And you'll get the answers to those questions to the board?
Once received, I'll send them.
My guess you'll have them by 10 o'clock.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we are up to topics for future agenda items.
Okay, so next meeting is February 15th, and at that meeting we'll have our second policy committee meeting, and then also bring back the policies that were discussed and are ready to be voted on for next time. Initially, the composting presentation was on February 15th. At this time, it's going to be moved to March 15th, and so that is so that we can have more information and can provide a more robust presentation. February 15th, we will also do the approval. You'll vote on the approval for the 23-24 calendar that we just discussed, and then you'll also bring back the referendum consultant contract that you were just talking about. March 1st meeting, there will be more policy approvals. And then March 15th, there should be a Frederick Assistant Principal candidate to bring to you.
Nice. Okay. Anybody else have a topic they want to throw on the list? Either for, okay. All right. We are up to public comments. Anybody else sign up? Nope. Okay. Then I need a motion to move into closed session.
So moved.
Second. Nash,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Albert,
Aye.
Weedman,
Aye.
and Braden.
Aye.
Okay, and we do not anticipate any action coming out of the closed session, so we won't be doing anything other than adjourning when we come out of it.